So, in case you guys aren't aware, there were basically a total of five movies that I'm aware of, and there's probably more, where basically government funded funding has gone in to kind of help promote Jacinda Ardern, this international, global brand. In fact, it's a bit more than that because let's and not by movies. Let's break it down. So you've got there was originally going to be a movie called They Are Us, which would have been made by Nicky Caro, who's the director of Mulan, the movie about the Chinese woman that was shot in China that gave the secret police a credit because they helped out the movie, which was shot next to the valley where basically Islamic people were being subject to indoctrination by the Chinese government. And this was at the same time, and that movie was scrapped because basically the Islamic community around said this is a bunch of basically middle class, self entitled neoliberalism that's completely disregards actually the suffering we went through. While of course, also the Islamic community and the mosque are very upset because they are very much aware that there was an intelligence failure, even though the Royal Inquiry has whitewashed it, and even though nobody wants to talk about the numerous red flags that the New Zealand police actually missed. So that was They Are Us, and that would have had contribution there by Frame Store, which involves William Sargent, who runs the Frame Store, and Jacinda Ardern worked for him as a spin doctor. A spin doctor is someone that tells you that a bombed out building in Bosnia is a little fixer up in an interesting neighbourhood. And he also had got the credits for, in fact, Mulan. They also were involved in that, and both Mulan basically got a tax right, and if They Are Us had been made, it would have also got a government tax credit. But then another $3.2 million dollars was contributed, and one was for a movie called Mania, which $800,000 from the government taxpayers' money, which then was actually scrapped. So $800,000 goodbye, and they scrapped it because there was another movie in the wake, and that was called Prime Minister, which actually also involved Clark Gayford. So I imagine he got a credit, and it's again this whole record where Clark Gayford seems to be kind of getting little bits of fame and celebrity given out to him because he happens to be the wife of the Prime Minister, even though really before the Prime Ministers he really hasn't contributed anything and isn't an artist of any great work. But it's not what you know; it's who you know in this business, apparently, baby. So that's wow. Like what the idea that we're paying money to politicians are meant to have limits on how much political parties can spend. But no, it's okay. We're going to give you some additional money so you can use it as propaganda to promote yourself and promote your causes, and you can control the narrative so you can look really, really good. But we won't look into how you actually signed the TPA, or that as a progressive Liberal Prime Minister, you did nothing for housing, you did nothing for hospitals, the health crap grew, you shat on the nuclear-free legacy, and basically you read the Worldwide Socialist website. They're the ones that point out it. Don't confuse her with us. She's not a socialist. Um, so she's running this position. Like it's becoming increasingly apparent that she is going to run for the United Nations, and she sort of got in connection with this whole kind of New York theme. But again, let's go back to Framestore. So Framestore also turns around and they provide the brands. They provide that we've got a French company that's involved in making a nuclear weapon now provides the number one branding for the All Blacks, but which again Framestore was involved in promoting that. They also are involved in promoting Air New Zealand, where Air New Zealand, of course, Jacinda brought in a business advisory council to work out what was happening with Air New Zealand when its previous CEO Chris Luxton had basically kind of caused the airline to lose a lot of money, and so instead she turned around and she brought him in the advisory panel, and he obviously would have got like a six-figure salary for that. And then of course when he became the Prime Minister, he appointed her to run the Christchurch Call, which is an idea of like trying to use internet, censorship on the internet, very much like what Policy Exchange is trying to do in the United Kingdom, which links monetary-wise from the Policy Exchange back to Alan Hubbard, who was partners to Humphrey Rolleston, who established the Christchurch Foundation, which is an incredibly sketchy charity, and all part of this whole industry of creating charities like the Robin Hood Foundation, which was set up by John Griffin and Glenn Dumbin, who are the guys John Griffin is the guy that provided Jacinda with her mansion. And in the States, they run this thing called the Robin Hood Foundation, which is basically where rich people donate money to charities that then donate money back to other charities, and the world goes round and round, and you end up with a $48 tax rebate. So it's actually got nothing to do with charities or soup kitchens or kindness whatsoever at all. But there's pictures of the Robin Hood Foundation. There's Diddy, and then there's pictures with Oprah Winfrey, and of course Oprah Winfrey is part of this whole with celebrities like John Colbert, who again are linked in with companies like Frame Store, and they're in the business of creating brands and controlling the narrative. And so, all of this is effectively tax, either from tax rebates from America to the American publics, or charities in New Zealand, tax rebates back to the government. This is all government publicly funded money being used to basically sell propaganda. And of course, these are the people that then turn around and going up and say, "Oh, actually, we'll give you a favour. You can come to our briefing, and we'll give you status, and that's good for your career." And then that becomes politicians are now getting to decide who is an accredited journalist and who's not. So the idea that we actually have an executive, a legislative, a executive, legislative, Googled. Then we had the fourth one is basically the idea is that the media is the fourth estate. They're the three arms of government: judicial, I knew it would come in, executive, legislative, judicial, and then the media. They should all have clear, separate, lines that are not confused. But now we have a situation where basically your politicians, which are the legislative, are now basically deciding who can report on them or not, and so the lines are becoming blurred. And this is this whole public relations idea where we're killing journalism, and what we're doing is we're actually making influencers are much more powerful, and populism is all that counts. Who are the cool kids on the playground? And of course, Jacinda Ardern is the coolest kid of them all. And there's a whole braining imagery gone around here. So, I said the whole point again about the Christchurch call is that, John, Luxon gets to be on appointment, he gets paid for it, then she turns around and appoints him. And the rest of the people that are involved in the Christchurch call are, largely made up of people that are actually come from tech companies, or rather oppressive governments that don't have very good human rights records and are really good at spreading hate and terrorism. So, I found that quite amazing when we start to look at actually how overt this whole industry is, this whole treadmill of turning someone into a superhero. And because largely the whole idea that we have an independent media where we can actually turn around and call people actually out, that's dead and gone. So there you are. Welcome to the rockstar economy, where being seen to do good is more important than actually doing good.